Hello everybody, welcome back to John's Garage. So today we have a lawnmower in for repair. I think this qualifies for my channel. It has 4 wheels and a gasoline engine, so it qualifies for the garage channel. So this lawnmower is 37 years old and it was purchased from Montgomery Ward. So the lawnmower has outlasted the retail store chain. You may remember Montgomery Ward's went away a long time ago, but this lawnmower is still around, still running. The symptoms of this lawnmower is that it runs fine until you shut it off when it's hot. If you shut it off when it's hot, it won't restart. You can pull on the string and pull it and pull it and pull it, and you have to eventually either wait like 20 minutes till it cools off to restart it, or take off the air cleaner, stick a screwdriver to open the butterfly valve in the carb, and then it starts fine. So let's see if we can solve that problem. I've got a little rebuild kit I got off Amazon for $5, and no, actually eBay. Got it off eBay for $5, and we'll see if we can solve that problem. So here is the product that I bought off of eBay, genuine Briggs Stratton. It is part number 299637. That goes with this model of lawnmower engine. This is a 3 horsepower Briggs & Stratton, made in 1985. And if you're wondering which model lawnmower this is, it is the 20-inch model TMO-37021A. And the engine on here is the Briggs & Stratton 92500. So the exact engine model is 92502. So we're going to take off the carburetor and gas tank together as one unit. So we just remove this screw from the air cleaner. It's a foam air cleaner in there. And when this thing is hot, the butterfly valve is cold, which is not good. It needs to be open to get more air. So this is cold right now, so it's closed. When it's hot, this should be open, so when you try and restart, it gets enough air. So let's take this off. So this is kind of cleaned up since I used it last. Took some purple power, sprayed this whole area with the air cleaner still on, and took a toothbrush and a garden hose. I took it out in the street, degreased it, cleaned it so I can see the screws here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like 4 screws that we're going to take off. Oh, before we do that, we're going to remove 2 bolts first. Let's get this whole thing off. So on the back here, let's take off this 1 bolt here. So let's undo this cable linkage here. And this is a 5/16. Now let's take off the mounting bracket here. And this is a 7/16. And there's another bolt here by the gas cap that is, what size is this? 1/2 inch. This has a little collar on it. So now we just have to undo this spring. Let's see. Take off this linkage here. There we go. We'll leave that spring. There's another linkage here that goes down. There we go. That's out. So there's gas in here, so we're not going to tip this over. We'll go over to the workbench with this now. Okay, so now we're at the workbench. And like I said, we cleaned all this with some Simple Green to degrease it. So there are 5 screws that we're going to take out to separate the carburetor from the gas tank. All these screws are the same size. So there's our 5 screws, and this comes off. And you'll see there's a gasket and a spring. There's a couple different models of carburetor from this era that have different gaskets, so make sure you look at the shape of the gasket and this hole right here. Some have 2 of these and some have 1, so there are differences. And then there's this spring. So we're going to undo this one screw right here to access. There's a metal hook that goes up in here, so we've got to get access to that. So put the gas tank aside here. Okay, got a 1/4 inch socket. It's just a little gasket on there. That gasket is good. We'll keep that. And the little hook that goes right in there, and drop it right out. So make sure this is all clean. That's all there is to the carburetor. Very, very simple. And over here on this side, if we were to take this off, there is a coil in there that gets hot when hot air from the engine blows through this tube and expands that coil, and that makes this butterfly open. It also works with this, where we had this hook on here. This, with that opens and closes. You see that? I have to like pull down on that. So that's this material here. You want to look and see if it's got any holes in it. It seems a little hard. I don't see any holes in it anywhere. That's good. After 37 years, there's no holes. So let's get the new part out. Compare that new part. Comes with instructions, and it says automatic choke Vacu-Jet carburetors, models 92500 to 92598 only. So we have a 92502. So this is the correct gasket. Looks like that. And it has the spring in the kit. That spring, of course, doesn't go on this side. It just bounces around on the box. So you have to take this new spring and connect it on here. And it takes some patience to get it on there. Okay, so I will do that. I will get that spring on those two little, if you can see that, there are two little tabs sticking up. And we'll get that spring on there to go on those two little tabs. Very tiny tabs. Let me show that choke again. If I move this on this side, show you a close-up of the choke when I'm moving it. You can see how that metal spring, as it gets hot, will move and open the choke. Choke opens like that. That little choke spring moves like that. And it works together with the gasket on the bottom that has a spring in it and that fabric. So, you know, carburetors are kind of primitive design, but very inexpensive, very old school technology that still works. Let me show you the throttle side. So this is where we had a cable going up the handlebar to the throttle. So what that does when you move your cable, hopefully you can see inside there, you'll see another butterfly valve in there that opens when I move the cable throttle and open it. You can see that opens on the inside. Okay. Okay, I've got the new spring on there and just had to spread the last coil of the spring half inside that tab and half outside that tab while I turned it counterclockwise over that tab, and it's on there. Okay, so now we're ready to reassemble. So put this up through the hole there, put that in there. We'll take this cover, don't want the gasket to fall off there. That cover with that screw, go back on there. Line up the gasket so we don't damage the gasket. Snug that up tight, but don't overdo it. It's just going in plastic. No. Well, I made a mistake. Okay. No biggie. Get this over that hole first. Put that in there. Hook that on. Our gasket there in place. Try this again. Okay, so we can see inside there that cable is hooked up in there. Our spring is on, it's not falling off. We've got our holes lined up, ready to go back on the gas tank. Put put the old part aside. And this little groove is clean. This hole down here is clean. There was no liquid in there, which is good, so it wasn't leaking. So I'm not sure why it wasn't starting when it's hot, because the gasket looks pretty good to me, unless maybe it just was a little stiff and was no longer flexible. So let me give you a close-up. So that hole does not go through to the gas tank. That's just a dead end hole. That does go through. You can see gas in there. This groove is clean. There's a little tiny hole at the end of that groove. That's clean. So when you assemble this, just hold the gasket with your fingers so it doesn't curl up anywhere. Aim for that hole there. Line up the holes and make sure the gasket's in there. Clean these screws up. Use the screws to line the gasket up. Move it around as you need to. Make sure every hole is lined up with the gasket material. I'm going to do that before we tighten down any of the screws. Because leaks in that gasket are the common problem with these carburetors of not starting when they're hot. Okay, so wiggle it around a little, make sure the gasket's lined up. Tighten each screw just a little ways. It's probably not too important, but I'll try and do a bit of a crisscross pattern to try and spread the load. I'm not tightening it yet. Just want to make sure the gasket is evenly seated everywhere. Okay, let's start tightening the screws down. Let's do like a half turn tight on each one. Okay, tight, tight. You want these to be tight enough so that they don't vibrate loose, but of course you don't want to strip them, so just make them nice and snug so that they don't vibrate out and you get a vacuum leak or gas leak or anything. Okay, that's sufficiently tight. Let's put this cover back on that allows hot air to go to the choke. Everything looks good on there. It's ready to go back on the lawnmower. So putting it back on is the opposite of what we did. We took it off. It's going to line this up right there. Line this up with the rubber piece and put our bolt through here with our collar on this side. Hook up a couple of linkages. So this linkage here is for our throttle. Well, this is our direct throttle, and then indirectly it moves that with this spring. Make sure all this is clean and free moving. So I actually could have left this in place. I didn't even realize that. So I did not have to take that off. So this linkage is the only one that really had to come off. There, got that on, didn't spill any gas. So line that up with this at the same time. And there is a rubber O-ring in there. Just make sure that's in place when you put it back on. There we go. And there is a rubber O-ring little gasket here for the air cleaner. So now we're ready to put this collar and this bolt. Let's slip that collar back there. Okay, just pull it out a little bit, get the collar in there, slip the bolt through, and then push it back on tight. This has to be tight right here, and this has to be tight here. And then we can snug up that bolt. It's our 1/2 inch. We don't need to make it tight yet. Let's get everything else on there before we make that tight, in case we need to adjust things a little bit. So there's a bolt on the back side of the gas tank. So this has a little turn this the correct way. So this goes up this way in that hole. Cable goes over that, and then the sheet metal screw goes in the bottom there. So we have our throttle handle all the way to slow. So let's close this. And that'll be open. That'll be open, so all the way slow will be there. Okay. Before we tighten that down, we want to get it adjusted, so let's tighten down the tank first. This in frame. Tighten down the tank, hold it in position, tighten it up. That's good and tight. Tighten up the back bolt that holds the tank on. That's good and tight. Check that throttle position again. All the way in slow. Okay, so let's lock that down in slow. And that moves freely. So we have full range. I'm using the throttle handle. That's all the way fast. That's all the way slow. Okay, that's good. I see the little throttle is opening. Let's see if that's going all the way. Yep, that's going all the way. There's no binding. Everything works good. Okay, so let's leave it on slow. Put the air cleaner back on. The air cleaner is very simple. Foam. You wash it with soap and water. Put a little bit of engine oil on the sponge and then squeeze it out. I wrap it in a paper towel and squeeze it out. So that's clean. That's not our problem here. And let's go ahead and mount that back on there. And our long screw goes right through the middle of the butterfly. Clean up our tools and we are ready to start. Okay, let's see if we can do a cold start. People on the internet seem to like cold starts. I don't know what it is, but here's a cold start. Okay, that fired right up. So let's run this thing till it gets hot. See if it restarts any better when it's really hot. It's over 100 degrees outside, so it'll get hot quick. Okay, it is nice and hot, and let's see if it starts up again. Let it sit a few minutes, see if it starts up okay. Going to start it hot on half throttle.
Well, I think it's safe to say it's fixed, and we'll call that job done.